Hello and welcome to the NDTV Dialogues, a conversation of ideas. Our focus this evening is spirituality in modern India, at a time the world is gearing up to celebrate International Yoga Day. A sense of pride in an ancient Indian tradition, but not without accompanying controversy. We expand the dialogue beyond this, however, to look at why spirituality is trending like never before. Joining me this evening is Javed Akhtar, poet, writer, atheist, also Amish Tripathi, best-selling author of the Shiva Trilogy, now ready to release his latest book with Lord Ram as the hero. Also with us, Nivedita Joshi, yoga practitioner, and Professor Purushottam Agrawal, scholar, somebody who's focused on dialogues regarding spirituality without religion, and our special guest, Sadghuru Jaggi Vasudev ji. Thank you all very much for joining me on the show. Amish Tripathi, it's a question that perhaps doesn't have an easy answer, but what do you see as the difference between spirituality and religion? And interestingly, when you write a book where the hero is Lord Ram, which often comes with so much political baggage, do you go into very dangerous territory?
No, not at all, but I'll answer the second one later. To understand spirituality, very simply, spirituality is that which has to do with the spirit. But I think we should perhaps delve a little deeper into the etymology of the word religion. It's said that the root of it is a Latin word, either religio or religere. There are two possible meanings that have been discussed by various philosophers for this word, religio. One is that which is read very carefully, right? So it in a way kind of compares to the smrutis that we have in India, which are essentially a set of laws which organizes society, what your food habit should be, what your sexual habit should be, where you should live, what you should wear. Normally, at least in India and most ancient cultures, these were never divine laws. These were something that society decided on how they wanted to organize themselves. Like all of us in India today, we have our own smruti right now. It's called the Indian Constitution. That's what we have decided to follow. And there is another interpretation of the word religio, that which binds, which again is a little similar to the Indian word shruti, which is the divine word. And the approach in this is to find unity with the divine. This is something that I guess all of us will hope to achieve in this life or in the next life or whenever we are ready for it. The main perspective in this, and that's something that all the ancients believed, is that if you want to reach the divine, if you want to rise spiritually, the only path is philosophy. To think that you can become spiritually aware without philosophy is as ridiculous as saying you can become a soldier without courage. And that's why in the ancient world, philosophy was something which everyone used to do. Unlike today, where sadly philosophy has been reduced to a subject in the humanities stream, where people who aren't smart enough to go into any other subject will go and study philosophy. That's not the way it was in the ancient world. In India, I guess we still tend to follow it. Even taxi drivers are philosophers in India. We still follow that ancient code. Everyone has to be a philosopher, because philosophy is essentially about learning how to live your life, preparing yourself for your next life, preparing yourself hopefully for moksha sometime.
Javed Saab, why is it that sometimes when we talk about, say, yoga, or when we talk about Sanskrit, why is it that we often treat these issues as politically loaded, as almost as dirty words? The so-called seculars will say that, oh my God, Sanskrit can't be taught in Indian schools. Yoga should not be part of the curriculum in Indian schools. Why are we sometimes too sensitive? Are we going the other extreme and actually abusing the word secular when we look at aspects which are part of Indian culture and say, this should be now, this is Hindu?
The matter with so many secular things are abused by the communalists. The fact is this: to begin with, yoga is a secular thing, but all the communalists will treat it as a religious ritual. They treat it as a religious ritual. Yes, on the other side also they are such reactionaries, and they look at everything with suspicion, and that is also true. But this is also true that you see, in India there were 3 languages which were classical languages, and the government had, a charter ministry had certain facility, given certain facility to be learned: Persian, Arabic and Sanskrit. Now Persian is very important to us because of 2 reasons. One, that Persian words are, so many words of Persian are in any language, North Indian language, whether it is Hindi or Urdu or Gujarati or Punjabi and so on. The word Punjab itself is Persian. Hindu or Hindi or Hindustan is Persian. But you know, recently, I mean, and not in this regime, not during UPA time, these two, Arabic and Persian, were removed. Now, if we have to learn, because all our old scriptures, our court proceedings, official work is in Persian, not in North India, even in Maharashtra, everywhere. Why it has been removed? Because Persian is Muslim. Sanskrit is Hindu. I don't know who has decided it. But it's so unfortunate. Urdu has become Muslim. A language which is basically anti-fundamentalism. You know, I have read this news that 2 terrorists were shot in an encounter and some RDX was found with them, and there were some cartridges and 1 LMG and 3 Urdu books. So now Urdu has become RDX. That is the problem. So this problem, whether Sanskrit or Urdu or Persian.
But I want to ask, when you have people saying that, oh, if Om is taken out of yoga, then it's all right, we'll do it as exercise. Do you also think that then that's ridiculous, then we're bordering on the extreme?
You see, I can't understand the mindset of religious people. Maybe it is for them, I don't know. I won't mind saying it at all. But there are some people who think Om is a religious word. But as a matter of fact, there are many people who say it because it is a religious word. That is also true.
Nivedita ji, how do we look? It's perhaps what Javed Saab is saying, it's about the mindset. It's not that it's not about yoga or Sanskrit, but it's being used to propagate a certain ideology, and that's when it becomes dangerous. How do you rescue perhaps what's part of culture or tradition from these ideologies? When you say to somebody who's a yoga practitioner, many people wouldn't know that you actually paralyzed, or virtually paralyzed, and you came out of it because of yoga. So when you see this kind of controversies around it, what would you say?
By the way, I have a yoga teacher.
Good.
So, I mean, it's stupid. But this stupidity is in all the sides.
No, I agree. The stupidity is never a prerogative
if
of
some
any
people
religion.
think that we will not say Om because it is a religious word, then there are many people who say that people should say Om because it is a religious word.
So we have to find the middle ground.
You see what happens, the majority,
Yes.
this is the danger which is prevalent in every society, that the majority culture is supposed to be the national culture. Majority believes if you disagree with me on any level with the majority opinion, then your patriotism is under question.
But let me ask Nivedita, the other part of that question, that is it minority culture then dominates it, even if you offend a sentiment of X group or Y group, is that the what should prevail, or should it be the majority sentiment, or should it be perhaps what seems logical? Nivedita ji, go ahead.
Well, one has to understand what exactly we mean when we say spirituality and yoga. Both of the lines take you towards the search of the ultimate truth. Now, this doesn't give you any way connection with religion, first of all. And secondly, you know, when we are in that path, which is to search for the higher consciousness, these things have no meaning. If you do not want to start with Om, you can recite any of your prayers to say thank you to the higher energy, if you believe in God. If you don't, to say thank you what you have given us as a knowledge, and we are following it as a way of life. So the important part is to savor the taste of the real subject, rather than you know, getting into this fight whether you recite Om or you don't. Because the recitation of Om or recitation of Patanjali prayer is to thank the Lord who has given this subject to the humankind so that they can live peacefully and nicely. So, you know, this is not a big issue.
So do you find it ironic that there's a debate that yoga should not be taught in schools? While we look at International Yoga Day, the fact is that in India most schools don't teach yoga anyway.
I
They'll
think
teach you PT, but they won't teach you yoga.
I think every subject, if you are treating it like a subject for a while in the beginning, should be given as an option. If the person is taking you know, interest in biology, he or she continues with the masters in biology. But you cannot force the person to, go on studying biology when you don't have any interest.
As a matter of fact, in schools, even if you force children to learn yoga, you force them for PT.
No,
it is for their physical fitness.
So, but this is not the way I would like that, because yoga is not for the physical fitness. It has a bigger goal.
Certainly,
Now
I got a very brilliant idea. Believe me.
As long as we don't all have to do yoga right now, it's okay.
All those who have any problem with saying Om, let them say Om. So after Ka, they will be saying Om. So
maybe
that will solve the problem.
No, but that's an interesting.
But we can tell them, Aap aisa ka kijiye.
That's an interesting point that I want to bring Professor Agrawal in it. That sometimes we are getting. It seems to be so politically correct that is yoga only about physical fitness? It's not, and it was most yoga gurus will not teach it as something about physical fitness, about mental fitness, about spiritual fitness. What is wrong if it's associated with a certain religion? What is wrong if Sanskrit is associated with a certain religion? Why is religion a taboo? Equality of religions is a different issue, but why should religion be seen as a taboo?
Let me say a couple of things,
Yes.
and please give me a couple of minutes.
Yes.
In the first place, to add to what Javed Sahab was saying, it is not only the North Indian languages, but even in Marathi till today, Amdar and Khasdar are terms from Persian. Peshwa is a Persian word. The Hindu Patpasai, Peshwa is a Persian word. So that is one. This is an important point which Javed Sahab was making. Now coming to your question, you see the point is that on one hand, every traditional practice has been a part of religious package.
Yes.
And if you accept that practice, it does not necessarily mean that you should accept that religious tradition or that should be imposed on you. I mean, we all accept acupuncture as part of medicine system now. It does not necessarily mean that I should accept the dogma or the religious understanding of Tao system.
But can you
Similarly,
disassociate it from it?
Of
You
course,
can't
why not?
disassociate it from its roots.
We have been doing it. I mean, we have dissociated the Western form of democracy from its roots in all over the world. We have dissociated many things because this is a human tendency that it adopts certain things in accordance with the felt needs. So if somebody has a problem with any religious utterance, I have no problem with his problem. So if somebody wants to perform yoga practice with Om or without Om, I don't mind, as long as he is doing yoga. And here yoga is not just a physical exercise. I think we must understand it, and we must make a distinction between physical, religious and psychological. Religion can be particular, religion could have a particular association, but the psychological exercises which yoga actually teaches you, if you really perform yoga, more important than physical exercise, you actually perform the psychological exercise, which I think has no particular association with any religion. And therefore, I personally feel that yoga should be actually taught in schools minus this stupid political baggage of left type or right type. That is one. Secondly, see, when we talk of spirituality or religiosity, we must understand one thing very clearly, that spirituality, no spirituality or no practice can be without a material basis. Everything has a material basis, everything has a materiality. And let us not talk in terms of 19th century science or philosophy, which actually bifurcated between matter and spirit. Now we know, and I think I cannot do better than quote the great Hindi poet Jaishankar Prasad, who starts his magnum opus Kamayani with something, no, it's not the first line, but it comes later on. Ek hi tattva ki pradhanta, kaho use jad ya chetan. So basically, this is the monism of nature. And if you go to this question of spirituality from this point of view, then I really don't think that spirituality per se is an issue. Because everybody, so far as the question of existence, so far as the question of meaning is concerned, I do not necessarily think that people who are bothered about the meaning of life are necessarily not atheists. Atheists are also bothered about meaning of life
I want to bring
in their
Amish
own way.
Tripathi on that, because actually spirituality is now a politically correct word. Why is it that we seem almost that to be seen as religious, to be seen as a practicing Hindu, to be seen as a practicing Muslim is almost in urban India looked down upon, that no, we're all spiritual. We're spiritual gurus, but we're not a Hindu guru, or we're not a Muslim cleric, or the Muslim clerics are seen somehow as fundamentalists, etc. Why do you think that there's almost an aversion to religion or organized religion in some strata of society, in urban society?
I think it's a consequence of westernization. This entire concept of separation of church and state is a phenomenon that happened in the Western world, because there were the excesses of the church out there. And many scientists had to fight back for their freedom. Galileo, for example, did not want to give up his faith. It was a Catholic Church which kind of got after him. He was a very devout man and a scientist. And I think perhaps the Western world sees it as a solution. But the point I am trying to make is that if you see ancient cultures across the world, they never had this dichotomy that I have to somehow give up religion to be scientific or give up science to be religious, because there was comfort with different versions of truth. You never had an attitude that if you don't agree with my truth, then you are worshipping a false god, or even worse, I will kill you. This concept did not exist in most ancient cultures. So there was comfort with different truths, and that to me is the basis of liberalism. I think we've imported a Western, and more perhaps in practice we are practicing more the French definition of secularism, where like, oh, religion is somehow wrong, whereas there is an American approach to secularism where the state itself will not differentiate between any faiths, but the American presidents wear their religion on their sleeves. They get sworn in on the Bible, they visit church, and there's nothing wrong with being religious. The only problem is when you start judging someone else's faith, and that is wrong. You must respect someone else's faith as well.
I think that's a valid point, because in that sense the Nehruvian ideology with Pandit Nehru very much a focus of a science and dismissing many religious traditions as mumbo jumbo. Do you feel that what's happened is that you do in a sense have a root, the secularism as practice say here leads to rootless
allow
society.
me to respond
Yes,
to
go
what
ahead.
he was saying. I quite agree with him that there were times when there was no such kind of conflict between your religious beliefs and your scientific endeavors, but those times are gone. Today religion and science are definitely not compatible, and it started from Galileo. Galileo had to apologize, so he realized that it is not compatible. 500 years ago, the man who was persecuting or prosecuting Galileo was not a mad person, because his knowledge and his faith were compatible. We are living in an era of schizophrenia, that a man who works for NASA and can make a rocket which will go at a precise spot of a planet reads the same book which created problems in Galileo's life, and with total reverence. This is schizophrenia. Anybody who is educated in 20th century, educated and has religious belief, is a sick person.
I'm going to Amish, I'm going to come back to you on that. But Sadhguruji, when you talk about it, when you define yourself as a spiritual guru, what do you see as the difference between spirituality and religion?
I know the word spiritual or spirituality is a much maligned word, but let me put it into context. It is just that if your experience of life transcends the limitations of being physical, then it is supposed to be spiritual. But it's taken on various forms and may have various meanings for people. When you say religion and spirituality, religion comes because of an established belief system. Spiritual process comes because you become a seeker. You can become a seeker only when you realize that you do not know. When you realize the immensity of I do not know, the longing to know and the search for knowing begins. This is a spiritual process. So, being a believer is one thing, being a seeker is another thing. Believer means you have assumed things that you do not know or not yet in your experience. A seeker means you have realized that you do not know and you're seeking to know.
Sadhguruji, then how would you describe yourself? Would you describe yourself as a religious guru, a spiritual guru, or a rock star yogi, as some of your fans also call you, a rock star guru?
I will leave the descriptions to other people, but if I have to be put under a word, I am a yogi. I am neither a religious guru nor a rock star or a rock. I am neither a rock nor a star. I am human, very much human, more human than most people and I am a yogi. Yogi means somebody who's experienced himself beyond the limitations of his body, has known the union of the existence experientially.
Sadhguruji, you're very much part of the International Yoga Day on the 21st of June. How do you see this whole controversy that has arisen around it, that this is about some Muslim groups have said that we don't want to be part of this, that this is propagating an ideology that is being seen as a yoga as a Hindu ideology, why should we follow it? Even some political parties have said this as well.
See, first of all, let's define the word Hindu properly. The word Hindu comes from this fundamental. The land between Himalayas and Hindu Sagara is Hindu. This is a geographical identity. This is not a cultural identity, this is not a religious identity, this is a geographical identity. People of the time realized their well-being and the peaceful atmosphere that they had and the cultural development, intellectual development and all the wonders that they experienced in that time, they owed it to these two geographical features because they were never ravaged by outside barbarian tribes, mainly because of the Himalayan ranges and the Indian Ocean. So out of gratitude and reverence, they call the land Hindu, the land between Himalayas and Indian Ocean, and they call themselves also Hindu. So this is mainly out of gratitude for these two geographical features. Now, an earthworm born in this land is a Hindu earthworm. This is just like saying an elephant born in Africa is an African elephant. This can never be a religious identity. Unfortunately, today we are trying to manufacture that and confuse the whole dimension of what it is. All aspects of life, sciences, culture, arts, music, everything that evolved in this land is referred to as Hindu. You say Hindustani music. This does not mean a religious music. This means it happened in this land. So calling yoga or spiritual process Hindu is just like calling, you can say gravity is Jewish.